talk kind of builds on the earlier talk, but if you weren't here for the first one, it doesn't matter because it's very similar. The thing I like to start with is chanting. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. This means homage to the Blessed One, the worthy one, the rightly self-awakened one, which is a pretty big deal. Buddha, 2,500 years ago, discovered a path that we are following today without a guide. And so he went into the spiritual forest and found a way and taught a way for us all to use to lighten our spirits and improve our lives. And so that chant is an acknowledgement that he did something that had never been done before and that we get the benefit of that. And so I think that's really cool. And one of the things about me, those of you who know me, is that my thing is to walk in the woods. And I like to walk silently in the woods. Next week, I'm going to walk in the woods for 4 days. And so on Wednesday night when you're here, I'm going to be meditating under the stars in North Georgia or Tennessee, depending on how I feel. And the gift that I get is that I get to walk in silence and meditate as I walk through these mountains. And I get to use this chant as I climb the hills because it's a tool that lightens my pack. It lightens my burden. And it makes me feel like I'm in tune with what I'm supposed to be doing. But I have a map. I have an app which you can see on the screen, and it tells me with geolocation exactly where I am. And so if I get lost, I can pull out this app and go, son of a gun, I am lost. Buddha didn't have that tool. Buddha discovered his way and taught his arahants how to live this life. And if you're interested in that, I strongly suggest the app, which is called Mind Gem. And if you're new to meditation, I strongly suggest that you go into the app and you look for the guiding monk that is Pasura. Pasura Dantamano. And he'll be here later this year. And his meditations are very simple. He has 24 of them, and they're all similar. And if you're new to meditation, he does an excellent job of simplifying it and making it fun, as our delegate explained earlier tonight with the coconut ice cream. Very important, because this is not something that we're taking on as a job. This is something that we're taking on to make our lives better. And after a while, it becomes something that you look forward to, almost like a vacation. But I'm not here to talk about vacation. I'm here to talk about suffering, because we love it. We do a lot of it. No, I'm actually here to talk about being happy. And when I'm offering metta at the end of our meditation sessions, I wish for everyone to be happy, healthy, and content. And I wish that for myself as I go through the day. And that suits me because it's simple and it's easy to focus on. Now, the obstacles to being happy, healthy, or content are greed, hatred, and delusion, as Buddha taught. And the stone that you have represents a particular kind of suffering that we all have. Now, in the Bible, for those of you that are Christian, there's a particular name for a small stone like that when it gets in your shoe. Does anybody know what that word is? No? It's called a scruple. Okay, so scruples are the things that give you pain and cause you not to do them again. And so when we get a stone in our shoe, we stop and we take off our shoe because that's not going away. And in modern day times, scruples are the things that keep us from doing bad things because we don't want the consequences internally or externally. So, for instance, we don't park in handicap spots because it could cost us $500, or our car could be towed, or we could be coming back out to our car and there'll be somebody with a wheelchair that had to park in the far corner of the lot, and then we feel terrible for the rest of our lives. And so the scruple is a good thing because it keeps us doing good things except in exceptional circumstances. So, you know, if I have COVID and I'm not handicapped, but I need to go into the drugstore, I might use that parking spot because, gee, I can justify that. And I just hope that I don't see a handicapped person in crutches on the way out. But that's the beauty of the stone, is that it teaches us to avoid the bad. And the thing about the stone in your shoe is that if you leave it in there, you think about it every time your foot hits the ground. And so after a while, you're not just suffering with the stone, you're suffering with the mental process of anticipating your foot hitting the ground. And so you're suffering twice. And that's part of the problem with suffering, is that we don't get past it by just saying, well, this time it's going to be different. This time when I step, it's going to be less painful. We don't get past it. And the fear of suffering can become greater than the suffering itself. For instance, for me, one of my big phobias is that I get caught in gridlock traffic in Atlanta. And I hate to feel powerless. And when I'm in traffic and I'm on the interstate and everything stops, I could be there forever. And that would be horrible. And so the mental process when I see traffic slowing down and then stopping, for me, it's intolerable. And I will do almost anything to avoid that. I'll get off on a side road and drive for hours just so I can be driving, even though that's irrational. And that's a small example, and I won't give you some of the more graphic ones because it seems like such a nice audience. In Buddhism, we have the same concept as the scruple. It's called hiriotapa. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. And that is the conscience inside of us that prevents us from doing bad things. And so the parallels are strong between whatever Christian or Judeo-Christian tradition you might have in here. But let's talk also about the kiss, okay? We have this kiss, and that represents the things that we crave. So we have an aversion to the pain of the stone, but at the same time, we have these things that we crave. Could be chocolate. Could be money. It could be security that's represented by relationships that are stable. And we crave these things, and we're drawn to them. And some of them are useful and good for us, and then others are bad. Some of us crave drugs and alcohol and cigarettes because that's our tradition or our past. And for those of you who don't know me, I come to Buddhism by way of being a student of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so when I was 17 years old, I was a daily drinker and a blackout drinker and a barroom brawler. And, well, I got in gunfights, and I did stuff that wasn't positive. And I got into AA when I was a teenager, and I haven't had a sober, or I rather haven't had a drink since it was legal. So I haven't had a drink since before I was 18. Not yet. But I recognize the depth of craving because of that, and it's not, gee, I want to have a Hershey's Kiss. It's a lot stronger than that. Coconut ice cream is great, and that's a great, vision to start the meditation with. And I kind of craved it after you threw that out. But it's a little different than smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Yesterday I spent a half a day with a friend of mine who picked up crack pipe after being straight for over 15 years. And, he may die because of it, and it was a great opportunity to spend time with him and tell him how much I loved him. But I recognized that I can't do it for him, and that, he may die. Statistically, he's most likely to die. And there's nothing I can do about that. But on a happier note, to get back to my little Post-it notes, the things that we crave in society today are a little different than the cravings in Buddha's time. So the cravings break down here into 3 basic instincts, which are for security, for sex, and to be somebody in society. And in the modern times, craving for clicks and for attention on social media for a lot of people is one of the most time-intensive things in their lives. And, to have approval from strangers by the thousands is what they crave. And I'm not one of those people, but there are some people in here who have followers. And there are some people in here who consider themselves influencers. There's certainly a lot of them out there. And that can take up a lot of time that could be spent in other purposes that are more useful, like earning a living or spending time with people who you find to be emotionally or spiritually rewarding, or friends that you just want to get to know better. A lot of people, myself included, sought the approval of my parents for the longest time. And I did things that I didn't want to do because I thought that my father would be impressed. And the reality was, I was never going to measure up to him, not while he was alive. His yardstick was purely financial, and mine was a lot more spiritual. And when he died, he was broke. And when I die, I'm going to have at least 60 friends, because I've got that many here tonight. 61. There we go, Stefan. So the reason that you have this kiss in your hand is to think about the things that you crave. And, we're not going to have a group session. I'm not going to tell you about all my cravings, but you can rest assured that, I have enough experience with it that I recognize it, and I recognize it when it's bad. And so when I get up in the morning, I crave a cup of coffee. And really, you don't want to interact with me until my second cup of coffee. My second cup of coffee, however, I listen to Mind Gym, and I drink that slowly, and then I put the cup down, and I replay the same meditation with no coffee in my hand, and I meditate for half an hour. And so together, that's about 45 minutes of listening often to the same guide day after day, because that's how I start my peaceful day. And today, having my peaceful day is the most important thing that I can do. Now, part of the problem with the kiss that you've got, and the reason that it brings suffering, is because it's impermanent. And if it really is something that you crave, like if you crave to see the elevation of your Bitcoin account, it's going to go up, and then it's going to break your heart and go down. And you're going to buy a lot of it when it's high, thinking it's going to go up, and it's like, oh, that was bad. I did the same thing 20 years ago when the tech stocks were a big boom. And I borrowed, at the time, 2 years of my salary to invest in tech stocks, and I did it right when the tech index hit its absolute highest. And then it tanked. And I, I broke even, as it turned out, but I ended up paying a lot of taxes on my break even. And I learned a great lesson about sleeping at night, because I had craved this financial security that I was going to be a wealthy guy with a mediocre job. And the reality is, if I wanted to do that, I should just save more money, because I am not the guy that's going to make my own financial decisions and become wealthy. And once I recognized that, I gave management of my money to somebody else, and I started sleeping at night, which is a huge gift. But back to the stone, back to the kiss, and then we'll move on. You know, the stone can represent a bad job that we stay in because it's secure. And let's see the hands about people that have stayed in jobs much longer than they should have because of security. You know, and if you haven't, you will. And bad relationships. I've stayed in bad relationships because they were comfortable. I have gotten into bad relationships because they were convenient. You know, and one of the things I've been working on this talk for, I don't know, 2 months because it got put off. And so I ran across this this reading the other day that Chang Tzu said. And he said, in matters of desire, be cautious. Well, I'll come to the quote later. It's on a Post-it note. But basically, it's easy to sink in deeply. And so you have to be cautious when you come to matters of desire, whether it's a sexual relationship or a job or whatever that is. If you make a commitment, it's easy for it to take over your life. And that's the thing about that stone, is that it's easy for that pain to take over our lives if we say, this isn't that bad. I only have to walk a little bit longer on this stone. And we've all done that. And it is not good. But the reason, and the thing about this talk, and you'll have to, how much time do I have, by the way? What's mine? 10 minutes. Okay, well, I've only got about another hour's worth of material, so that's always my challenge here. Freedom from self is the core teaching of Buddhism. And coincidentally, it's also the core teaching of AA. So when I came into here, I recognized that this would be a good fit for me if I wanted to continue to stay sober. And of course, that's also one of the tenets, so that made that part of it easier as well. But freedom from self is a core tenet of Buddhism, and the reason that it is because the self is what craves, and the craving is what leads to suffering. And so if I can get over my selfishness, if I can get over my self-centeredness, if I can have that removed from me, then the craving will disappear, and I can attain at least the first 2 steps on the Eightfold Path, which Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. And so it's good for me to recognize that I have to get over this craving, which is the second of the 4 truths that Buddha taught. The second truth, the truth of suffering's origin, craving, has to be abandoned. And you don't do that by just going, okay, I'm not going to crave anymore. Because we have these 3 instincts, sex, security, and society, that lead us to crave as lay people. Now, the monks are on a different path, and with their 227 precepts, they're on a different plane than we are. But as householders, we have marriages to maintain, or relationships to keep, or jobs to go to, or communities to be involved in that are on a different place. And so part of what the Buddha taught was to his monks, but part of what, a lot of it, is what he taught to us as householders. And so we have to recognize that this attachment that we have to the kiss is the fear of loss of that is something that's constantly churning inside of us. And it's why we have to start out with that scoop of ice cream, the coconut ice cream, so that we can calm our minds and say, perhaps I don't need this. Perhaps I don't need to crave the security of this bad job. Perhaps I could be receptive to a better job or a better relationship or improving a relationship with somebody who I consider to be troubling. Simon, are you still with us back there speaking of wit? No, I'm just shouting you out there. Okay, yeah. Stick with that. Stick with that. If anybody has a copy of the 38 Wisdoms, which is the English translation of the Mangala Sutta, it's in the library, hopefully. It's a great read. And in the Mangala Sutta, the Buddha talked about how sensual pleasures far exceed their natural balance and lead us into craving. And we can have the same thing with society in the need for approval in our communities, whether it's through cliques or whether it's because we're the best lawyer or the best hairdresser or the best logistics person or whatever it is. And when we're not, when we don't live up to that, then we're horrible and we're failures and we're never going to be anything. And the reality is, we all know intellectually that it's ups and downs in life, but we don't want to give ourselves a break. And so the solution to craving, and this is a little off script from Buddha, is to pray. And the prayer that I have, that I love, is on the bottom of this slide. And if you believe in God, this is a great prayer. And it is, God, I offer myself to you to build with me and do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do good deeds. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may make me contented and useful in my community. Some of you that come from the same tradition of recovery that I do are going to recognize this. It's the third step prayer. And relieving me of the bondage of self is huge. And that's where I start my day, every single day, because I recognize that I got to get over Bill. I got to get over what Bill wants. And if I do that, I can have a successful day. I can have a peaceful day. But if I don't do that, I'm going to be mired in anger and frustration and self-centeredness. And I still may get stuff done, but I'm going to be angry at the end of the day. And I may not sleep. And I like to sleep. I may not be able to quiet my mind enough to meditate, and I like to meditate. So there are 10 perfections in Buddhism, and this is the list. Dana, Sila, Nekama, Pana, Viryana, Kanti, Saka, one I can't pronounce, Metta, and Upekana. Generosity, virtue of moral conduct, renunciation, wisdom, energy, patience, truthfulness, determination, loving kindness, and equanimity. They go from easier to more difficult. And really what we're talking about is equanimity. We're talking about me saying that my life is none of my business, that I'm going to do the legwork in my life that I think needs to be done, and I'm going to recognize that the universe may give me what I want. It may give me the Hershey's Kiss that I dream of, or it may give me a rock like Charlie Brown's Halloween. And I can make good with the rock, or I can make good with the kiss. The kiss is impermanent, and so is the stone. The stone is going to pass, and it'll become something that I want later. But I have to recognize that sometimes I'm going to get that. And when I do that, I feel like I'm having that contented, useful life that I'm shooting for. And so this is a whole lot of stuff and a whole lot of words. It's way less than the Mangala Sutta. But the suggestion that I have is that you write this down, okay? Everybody thinks 90 miles an hour. We talk 20 miles an hour, but you write 3 miles an hour. And so if you write down the things that you're craving, if you write down the things that you're fearing of losing, and you look at that page, and then you let it sit for 3 days, and you come back to it, and you write some more, you can get a pretty good idea about what it is. Thank you for staying for the whole time, man. I know you had to leave early. The rest of you guys, I'm watching you. I'm watching you. So that's all I've got. I've got my 30 minutes, and we're at the end of my slides. 3 minutes of questions. Well, thank you. So I'm not going to keep anybody from their tea, but if you want to talk to me after the thing, I'm going to be here for another hour or so. And thank you for having me. This was fun.